We live? How's everybody doing? Are you ready for the warm weather like I am? It's ridiculous every year. So, what's that? Actually, London was warmer for London, but not warmer than here, if that makes sense. And it did rain, as usual. Apparently, they've gotten snow there as well. So, I'm going to change the format a little bit, if you guys don't mind, because I feel like most of us know each other. If we don't, maybe we should just pass the mic and make sure everybody knows who's in the room. I just thought it'd be helpful. So I'm Greg Odell with Events DC. I've known many of you, and I get the pleasure every day working with a great team. As you all also know, we've combined our Convention Center Authority and the Sports Commission several years ago, and so now we're Events DC, the Convention and Sports Authority. But we certainly haven't forgotten where our roots are. This community has been tremendous in terms of its support and guidance in terms of how we got this building built, how we got the Marriott Marquis done. And so frankly, it's been a good model for us as we work in other communities with the new entertainment sports arena or even at RFK about how we've been effective to work together. So I just want to say that we don't get together as often as we used to, but we're appreciative nonetheless of all the great partnership we've had. So I'm going to pass it to this table here first, and then we'll pass it around.
Hey everyone, for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Will Liebner. I work in the Strategic Initiatives Department here at Events DC. We focus on new exciting projects like some of the stuff we've been working on around the Convention Center. I'm a DC resident and a lifelong Washingtonian, so nice to meet you guys if I haven't met you already.
My name's Ryan Conway. I'm a senior project manager with Events DC. I probably haven't met many of you as I just started about 4 months ago, but looking forward to meeting you and to working on many of the exciting initiatives that Greg just described.
Is it on? There we go. Good evening. Jim Erickson. I am with Smart City Networks. Our company actually takes care of all the networking here in this building. However, as a DC resident and also a community resident, we're here to enjoy everything that happens tonight as well. And this is my wife, Valerie.
Good stuff. Thank you for being here, bro.
Hello, my name is Frank Wiggins. I'm ANC Commissioner for 6E03.
How you doing? I'm Mike Green, president of Avenue Publishing Company here in D.C. D.C. native and local CBE here in D.C.
Great. Thank you for being here.
I'm Dr. John Syfax, a Blagdon Alley resident for 30 years.
Right.
That's what they call it.
Hi, I'm Joanne Newhouse, and I'm the Executive Director of the Penn Quarter Neighborhood Association, and our boundary starts at your southern boundary. And so I'm happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Nigro, and I'm a resident that lives 3 blocks from here.
Hello, I'm Howard Marks, and I'm a resident at Gallery Place, formerly at 1150K, so I could look out my window and see the convention center. I also one of the few people in the room that actually put on a conference, several conferences here at the convention center when I worked at the Department of Energy. So I know from both sides of the street, so to speak, what a great operation this is.
Good afternoon. My name is Valario Johnson. This is my first time here. I'm a new staff like my colleague Ryan, and I am Mr. Balls at RFK Stadium.
I'm the real Teresa Dubois.
The real.
I'm the Community Outreach and Engagement Manager for the Convention Center. Thank you all for coming out.
Good afternoon, Angela Wiggins. I actually work for Penn Good, which is a strategic communications firm here in Washington, D.C. So happy to be here this evening.
Oh, okay. I'm Pleasant Man. Been living in the neighborhood for, forever. And I guess here I'm sort of representing a volunteer for Shawn Main Streets, and so those people would have come, but they couldn't make it tonight. So
Good evening, Juniette Hubbard, Vice President, Communications and Marketing here at Events DC. And I am, like Will, a lifelong Washingtonian, DC resident. And then I'll speak for Tiffany Sy over there, blasting away on social media, who is our marketing manager for Events DC.
Thank you, Chin. So I'm sorry if I took time to do that, but I thought it was important. We all know each other, and want to make sure everybody knew who else was in the room. I will say it's funny. I feel like for many of you, it's not just about the community, but also Events DC. Joanne was kind enough to send me an email about our RFK project, but that's the feedback we want. That's we want good advice and direction from people across the city for the things we're involved in. So I thank you for that, but I welcome the conversation. So having said that, tonight we want to give a little bit of update of just what's going on at the convention center in and around us as well. And so for many of you who've come to our prior meeting before, when we last had our community meeting, it's probably not really new information. Some of it's just an update, particularly on some of the projects, but nothing new in terms of new projects. And so we want to just make sure we keep you informed about what's going on with us, and certainly get any feedback that we should be aware of as it relates to either things we're doing or things that may affect the community or affect us. And Howard just gave me a great example of something that we're going to follow up on. So with that, we'll jump right in, talk about Carnegie very quickly. There really isn't any new news, but the old news is great news. As you all know, we signed a deal with Apple for what is a global flagship store. And so that will incorporate not just the retail component, but also, more importantly to us, community forum and event space as well. So they are under construction. They are still planning towards the end of this year, probably around the Thanksgiving timeframe is what we're told. So far so good is what we're also told. Let me turn to the slide so I can highlight some of these points. But as you all know, we went through a pretty extensive process. I think the first bullet is very key. We spent a lot of time making sure that our partners at Historic Society of Washington had not only a temporary home, but also had a new, frankly, better experience when they got back to that building. So they are in their temporary space, and as we've been working on, I think they just released a press release on what they're doing in terms of their temporary closing of their space. So we're excited, but recognize that growth sometimes comes with some pain, and we want them to make sure they have a great experience in their new space when they get back. It really is about it. From our perspective, as I shared in the past, given the operations of the Apple store and the community space, we will more than likely join with them on some community events, and probably we certainly won't use the building from a rental perspective like we used to. But we encourage and will support them along with HSW in doing a lot more community-related events there as part of their experience. So we welcome that, and we think it's, in many ways, returns to kind of the public use of that building as a library when it was first intended. We think it's a good way to pay homage to that as well. Any questions on Carnegie Library before I move on? Yes, Rochelle. Yeah, so we had a good question. They had a really good example of what they've been doing in their San Francisco store. What's the name of it? Union Square, I think, is the name of it. So they actually showed us the activation where they did, I want to say nearly 100 events. And so they plan to be very active. And the good news is the community forum space not only will be event space, but it'll also be open to the public all the time. And so people can come in, as they described to us, and actually set up and socialize, use Wi-Fi there, and use the experience. And so if you know the space, as I know you know it well, that entire great room in the center portion of that room is all going to be the community forum space. The retail components will only be on the wings, and so it creates, obviously, great opportunity for people to come experience the building all the time from a public perspective, aside from when they're actually doing events there, which will be open to the community as well. Yes, Howard.
Yeah, Greg, thank you for the update. So I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but you probably know that on the east side of the library, behind the barrier, there is a drug market has now developed. I just noticed we walk our dog there, and just in the last 2 weeks, people are actually like driving up onto K Street, and they're getting out of their cars, and they're going up to these people on the bench and to do drug transactions, just shouting out. It's become also like a garbage heap there, and it's not befitting the convention center.
No, we appreciate it. So we've been aware of some activities there, particularly as it relates to the gathering for various types of activities, but also the trash that's being left behind as well. So we're going to address it, obviously, from our perspective, from a maintenance and from a cleanliness perspective, but also we'll engage the city as it relates to the other activities to help support that. And certainly, as you all know, the local representatives of MPD encourage you to do the same, and we'll certainly do our part. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. But yes, we recognize that on a temporary basis, that is some of the challenges that are over there. Yes.
So I'm glad Howard brought that up, because it's actually been going on longer than a couple weeks. It's been going on probably a couple months. And what happened is they used to hang out in the Residence Hotel, Renaissance Hotel alley. And then they, I guess with the construction, and they got kicked out of there. And then they literally moved to your space. And it is very late at night, too. And now I noticed this week they're there in the morning. So it's almost from early evening through the night. And they don't seem to care that there's like this morning there was about 15 people there.
Okay, so. Thank you for that. And I know Teresa's back there taking notes on her phone, so we'll make sure we address it. Yes, sir. And let us get a microphone to you.
I just wanted to know, does Apple actually own the property, or is that DC is leasing it to Apple?
Good question. We as Events DC actually purchased the building from the city, and so we are leasing it to Apple. So we will retain ownership. Thank you.
Let's see. I understand that the Washingtoniana from the public library was going to move out of the museum, and I was wondering, is there some sort of cooperative agreement you guys had with them, or can they just leave or whatever? Or, does that affect your plans or anything?
You mean from a historic society moving out of the museum?
Oh, well, I guess both. Okay, I guess the Washingtoniana moved into the Carnegie Library, and then they had to move out with the Historical Society to the museum. And now I understand that the DCPL part is going to move from the museum somewhere else, parts unknown here. And I was wondering if...
Yeah, so fortunately or unfortunately, that deals with Historic Society, not with us. So we didn't require any of their program elements to be in any temporary place or their physical location. So it really was their flexibility to do so.
That's theirs, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, though, for the question. All right, so if no further questions, we'll jump on. Actually, what's a good presentation with some pretty rendering? So, sure.
Sorry, that image reminded me. Do you know now who has jurisdiction over all that grass and pavement around the library? Is it DC now? Has Park Service relinquished it through some kind of agreement?
So, so DC, Washington, D.C., the district has always had administrative jurisdictional control, but the feds actually own the land. And so from a program perspective, we will act on behalf of the city on the grounds in or around basically east, west, and north of the center. And then on the south portion, Apple will do some programming on the steps in the south portion of the Carnegie Library space.
So do you also have to work like with Park Service to make sure if you remove a tree, they agree to it, or that there's no food there? Because I think you can't put food on Park Service land. But are you free to make changes there?
So we certainly need to notify them. As it relates to removal of trees, for sure, we need to notify them. Having said that, they have been very passive in terms of the maintenance and even the upkeep and the programming. So we've taken on the maintenance of that square as well. And so from that perspective, we certainly, if there's any changes, I would characterize them as significant or material, whether removing trees or otherwise, we certainly would have to go through not only Park Service, but also through DC's regulatory process for removing trees as well.
Now my big question, have you considered putting some kind of temporary, and I'm going to say temporary just because that seems to be easier to get approvals for, some temporary facility that might enliven the space more, whether, you know, sort of a cafe type thing on the space, and maybe a children's play area on another part? And because with Apple there, although people may come into the retail area, which would be great, there isn't much that is of a casual nature like that is close. And going up 3 blocks on 9th Street is a trek that a lot of people aren't going to make.
No, great question. We probably have a few scars from our international spy redevelopment efforts where we propose lots of different things, including some retail. I will tell you there was great concern, and we didn't try the temporary route, which I obviously understand, but there was a lot of concern about the view corridors and sight lines as it relates to that building.
It was also poor architecture.
Well, I won't speak to the architecture, whether it was poor or not, but you just did. So I think we will certainly plan in conjunction with Apple. We'll do more programming there. And one of the things that we were worried about or focused on was the broader redevelopment scheme. But as Events DC, now that we're going to be maintaining the grounds, we will do more programming there as well. It's a balance because it's a park, and so people want to use it as a park and not see structures there that may impede that use. I understand probably the challenge or difference, at least from the regulatory bodies that we dealt with, that the size of that park, obviously any structures, unlike Bryant Park, doesn't allow it to those uses. Don't disagree, and frankly, when we went on this process, we found it most challenging to redevelop the library because it sits on an island, and so it wasn't conducive to redevelopment or redacted use. So I hear you loud and clear. We haven't explored temporary structures that would end up being permanent, but we certainly are going to do more programming there that would have tents and the like and activation. Happy to. Okay. Any other questions on Carnegie? You don't have to apologize. That's what we're here for. How are those chips, by the way? Good. So the retail update. This will be no news to anybody, but we wanted to put it up here just to make sure, in case you weren't aware, but our leasing effort is now complete. So thanks to many of you for the support that you all have given us and for the support that you're giving the retailers now, because they do need support. But we think it's a great diverse mix of retailers there. And so our job is to continue to support and promote them and make sure that people inside the building are now going outside the building. And so one of the reasons why we actually added a lot of the elements in the streetscape was to try to activate all the way around the building so that it would drive people to that retail, right? So the retail is great, but it's still a long walk from Mount Vernon to N Street. And frankly, all this is at the northern portion of the building. So we want to figure out, again, we can do lots of, Chignette and her team are great at marketing and promotions and helping, but we still need to actually physically drive people there because it's such a massive building. You get lost in figuring out where you are relative to the retail or even relative to the entrance of our doors. So, but congratulations to the retailers. I think we have some, obviously a list of who they are. The last ones that were open were the Morris American Bar and the Unconventional Diner. Who all have you all been to all or most of these? Anybody been to these retailers yet? Okay. I would encourage you, I don't have discount passes or anything, but I would encourage you to go. I tell people and I just spoke to some master's program students. I was telling people the retail is actually interesting because you can go to Smoked and Stack and eat a sandwich, and then you can go to Composition ID and they'll tell you how unhealthy you are for eating that sandwich, and then go work out at Urban Athletic Club. So it's a nice mix and an evolution of retail there that we didn't even think for, that maybe we can market it that way. Chin, it'll be a good opportunity to sell that way. So we'll move on if there's no questions. Oh, go, sure, Howard.
Yeah, thank you. These are all very exciting developments. When I was at the Minneapolis Convention Center a number of years ago, there was a restaurant that could be accessed by convention goers, by people that were there like myself. So I see one of the problems when I put on these conferences here is that my attendees would have to leave the building and go through, and go in and out of security. Well, they weren't willing to do that. And I mean, obviously, there are challenges with having that sort of like accessibility to people within the building, but have you thought about how you might be able to address that? Thank you.
I lose a lot of sleep on that very question, Howard. So he raises a great point. The retailers inside the building, for the retail experiences that we have, it's a struggle because it's reliant on the volume of the business we have inside the building. So as a result, we even struggle to have certain brands or other franchises actually come here because the volume typically is not enough to sustain that kind of retail inside the building. So as a result, we were trying to think about ways that we could actually open up the building for people to enjoy that retail. Couple of challenges. There's obviously a security challenge, and in this day and age, it's just getting worse of having the interaction or the intersection, if you will, of public attendees versus convention badge attendees as well, and how that would work in and throughout the building, particularly when you have a very large convention coming of 30, 40,000 people where you're already at max. And so how do you even control that flow of public, let alone keeping the integrity of the convention that's there, that really is designed to have people there and one mission focus on whatever the convention's intent is, as you know from your experience. So security-wise, and that interaction or conflict has been a challenge. The other challenge is the physical structure of the building. So we have, as you all are familiar with the building, or most of you, there's a big, large food court at the front end or south portion of the building. That really is only accessible by the concourse level. And even for attendees that are here on the concourse level, if you don't know it's there, you won't see it. It's the way the building was built. There's a column there, and there's other structural components that are blocking that entrance. So we've studied it before. We're about to embark on another study as to how we even open up that entrance, just let alone for better accessibility for attendees, and then figuring out if there's a way that you can even have access from the public to come in some secure location to get to that space. And so all that is a lot of a challenge. We're going to study it and figure out if we can make sure it works. But even then, you then also have to change the outside or exterior of the building so that people know that your retail space is actually down there and accessible. So I'm not saying it's insurmountable, but it presents a challenge, and we'll have to do a cost-benefit analysis as to whether that actually makes sense or not.
So just
15,000 square feet.
One thing that might help guide you, at the Capital One Arena, Green Turtle has when there's a Caps games, I'm not sure about the Wizards, but I'm sure it's for the Wizards also. So if you're a ticket holder, if you present your ticket, they have an entrance from inside the building, and it's guarded. I mean, it's not security people, but it's employees, I think, I don't know who they work for, but they closely watch who's going in and out, and you have to have a ticket to re-enter the arena. So you might look at that.
No, it's a good point, and we definitely will. And we've looked at some models. The challenge is you have to come in and go 2 floors down, and whether that's attractive to people who are going to decide whether they want to go through that hassle or not to do that. And not, again, we're going to work with some of the retail brokers as well and study this and figure out if there's a way to make that space. The other alternatives, we also have on our upper exhibit hall space another upper food court hall, so it presents its other challenges. So instead of going 2 floors down, you now have to go 2 floors up to access that, and it's even less accessible because there's a pretty steep slope in terms of the escalators that access that space, and there's really no way to get from the street side on 7th Street directly up into that space. And so we'd have to create that some type of vertical penetration to even consider that, and whether there's enough room there right now is a challenge. And so, great question. Yes. No, it's actually, the ballroom is the 3rd level, if you will. We call it level 56. I'd say 3rd. There's actually 5 levels, but of the main levels, concourse, and then your 2nd hall for exhibits, and then the ballroom's on the 3rd. And then there's mezzanines and space in between. We're actually, so we're at the street level, so it's one level above us as well. That's right, I captured the essence of your question in my response. All right, so we'll move on unless there's any other questions. Okay. Again, I keep burying the lead here with these, the fact that we have this wonderful pictures to tell the story. So this is the concept. So the upper left-hand corner is the Morris Bar. The right-hand corner is Unconventional Diner. Left hand is the Union Kitchen Grocer, and then Urban Athletic Club on the right-hand side. Very empty, nobody working out there just yet. So the exterior building activation. So I spoke a little bit about why it was important in the context of the retail, but I think you all appreciate this more than I do. You know, when we built this building, we had the best of intentions, and it was a great design. But it, at the end of the day, was a $2.3 million square foot building plopped in a neighborhood. And so even to this day, when people walk to and from and around and through the building, it's not an inviting walk that it draws people to the building. If anything, it probably pushes people away because of the size and magnitude and, frankly, the materials of the building. So we wanted to figure out a way that, one, would connect to now the retail that's occurring around us, but also ways that would soften that building. And thirdly, also be an amenity to the community and to the attendees to have things that actually activate in and around the space. Also speaks to the security issues that we talked about as well. And so we came up with a program, and again, we presented this at the last community meeting, so it's probably nothing new to many of you. But the good news is that, you know, we've spent a lot of time with our regulatory partners, and we actually have concept approval from CFA and NCPC, if I'm not mistaken. So as all you know in this room, not an easy task. So we're very proud of the fact that we felt like it was the right mix of elements, but not to be too overpowering and overwhelming for the building. So without further ado, I'm going to walk through some of these elements. All that I just spoke of as to reasons why we were doing it. And also, the thing that, Howard, you made a great point about your example of Minneapolis. We find in other cities, there isn't sometimes an opportunity to have this retail, and I'm sorry if I have my back to you guys, an opportunity to have retail around the building that both the community can enjoy, but also the attendees can enjoy as well. So we think that will actually help us from a competition or competitive perspective as well. So you all are familiar. I don't know if any of you have had this aerial view from your own personal helicopter, but from this is what it looks like from the north. So you'll see highlighted in and around the space is obviously what we're talking about activating. For those who may not know, or a trivia question, you can ask your friends. It's actually about 1 mile in circumference around the center. So if you want to get a good lap in, get your exercise, that's a good way to do it. Hopefully the weather will cooperate and get warm, you can do so. So again, I know I'm speaking to the choir here. You all are familiar with our building. Great in its design intent, but you know, there are places that, again, that can be softened and create better connectivity to the environment around us, but also things we can do physically with the building facade or even the sidewalk that will make this you know, more pleasant experience or inviting as well. The one thing you'll also notice, and this happens to be, I think this is 9th Street, oh, this is N Street. So N Street, we obviously have some retail components or elements here, but in many cases when you see these nooks and crannies, you don't know what's behind that door. And in this particular case in N Street, a lot of that are actually exit stairwells and other things that aren't really of public use or need, but again, behind the glass, you're not really sure what they are. I will tell you on 9th Street, you'll see all these nooks and crannies up and down 9th Street, and for those who know the building or have peeked in, you're actually overlooking concourse space, so it's nothing behind those walls, but it gives the appearance that there's something there when you see those nooks and crannies, and so we wanted to do something about that. So I'll quickly show you things that we're obviously focused on. Underutilized sidewalk with no seating. Certainly we want activation for all the reasons we described, but this just shows you on both of these, all these street locations, what the sidewalk looks like as well. Yes. We try to pick the drab color to, surprise you. The other thing is the also challenge are the trees. And so one of the, what's that? Yeah, one of the issues, and the reason why, and it wasn't because we didn't have a green thumb or that we were uncaring. One of the reasons why is that actually, for those who remember when the convention center was built, there's actually built on a viaduct or a bridge support structure under the street and under that sidewalk. And so it doesn't allow for boxes to retain the water and the obviously the nutrients to support the tree growth there. And so that's been a problem from day one that we have to solve for. And so we can't necessarily go down given the support under it, so we can figure out how we create boxes actually above to support it. So that's one thing we're addressing in this new streetscape. Boxes, great. Great. Yep, and we'll show you some that we actually have incorporated as well. Light posts, so we recognized that there obviously could be some improvements to the lights, although we were told, and Will or Ryan correct me and tell me who actually designed these lights, but these are like the original lights by somebody very important or famous. And so we're told throughout the city you can't change the light poles or the actual light fixtures. Yes, so that is iconic in its nature. So I think on a broader scale, the city is actually trying to figure out not impacting the globe, but also what the illumination qualities of that light will be and improve that, frankly. So you all may know more about that than I do. So as you all are probably aware, on this particular shot, there's actually a loading dock behind that wall. So that's actually been a faux wall and just a screen there all that time, where it was probably a nice design element when it was first built. It has obviously less aesthetic value now and frankly no functional value. So we wanted to see if there's ways that we can address that as well. What's that? Art. Yes, we can definitely do some art, although we have to be tasteful where we can do the art. So we felt like that might be too overpowering for every bay, but we'll show you what some of our ideas are. And certainly, as you know, CFA and NCPC had their say as to what we could do or not do. But obviously there is an opportunity for us to do something there. So I'll go quickly. This is kind of the project scope that gives you all the different elements that we described. I'll go through in detail so you don't have to remember the numbers, but roughly there's 19 or 20 different elements in and around the building that we were proposing. So the retail. So the first areas you'll see is the building retail. So the orient you, this is on the 9th Street side. So obviously this is Mount Vernon here, and then this is the L Street through the building, and then obviously in the first, or that middle building block. So those are the nooks and crannies that I was telling you about that frankly just look like areas that you don't know what's behind that wall, and they look very dark in nature, and to the points we were talking about earlier, they certainly can encourage people to hide out there or do some nefarious things there, right? So we wanted to see ways that we could activate that space. And so we came up with some very cool concepts for some pop-up retail or retail kiosk spaces. And so we think this is a great way to actually activate that space. And now you're creating this corridor that connects from south to north. This obviously won't have heavy kitchen usage, but there are some concepts. This particular example is a good one. You'll see GCDC, which is the grilled cheese DC concept, which would be a great fit for something like that. So obviously, as we've gotten through this approval process, when we get down the road, we'll look at all different types of diverse product and types of local users or purveyors that we could obviously partner with for those types of experiences. Likely could be seasonal because you'll have roll-up doors or something to that effect, but we'll test and see how that will work and as the seasons change. But we're certainly open. The good news is you'll see, and we created to give them a little bit of depth and to have a better quality experience. We actually have, and I hope it's in the next slide. Oh, it's not. Maybe I'll come back. So there's actually depth on the concourse side where we'll actually build out some space. And so if you're inside the building and you're looking up from the concourse, you'll see this glass globe, if you will, or cube that actually will house this retail experience. It will be built in a little bit so that we can give them a little more depth. But equally important, we want people who are as attendees in the building to want to know what's going on there and go out and enjoy the retail space. So we'll still preserve the transparency in the glass and the light coming into the building, so they'll be able to see through those glass. Obviously, we'll have some cover for what needs to be covered in terms of back of the house, but we want to make sure that, again, people can access it, but also people downstairs will, in the concourse will also know what's going on up there. Yes, John?
Idea I had, which is that because it's small spaces, and I've been to Torpedo Factory where they have artists in small spaces, but there are some arts festivals that you could, where you have mainly craftsmen who can use small spaces and activate them, and they create great pedestrian interest.
Sure.
So I mean, it's something to to not exclude the arts from use of some of the spaces here.
Sure.
Just a thought. And I love the fact that you've also added some landscaping with raised planters on the sidewalk.
Yes, thank you. But great idea. Thank you for the feedback. Yes, Rochelle.
The micro bars. If you've ever been to Tokyo, they have micro bars.
I haven't been to
So
Tokyo,
like
but now that you suggested, I'm going to go.
6 seats in each bar.
Oh, really? So how big are they, roughly, square footage?
About 6 seats big. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, we can all do a road trip to Tokyo. But thank you. That's a good idea. So next slide, we'll move to the South Building retail. So this is further up towards Mount Vernon Square. So very similar. You'll see there again what that looks like in existing conditions today. And then this gives you a sense of what that could look like. And again, it doesn't have to be all food. It can certainly be art, but also it can be a magazine stand, other things, newspaper stand, and otherwise. So we're certainly open, and we'll certainly get feedback and engage the brokers. Absolutely. Yep. No, absolutely. No, great. And we certainly plan to tap some of those startups from over there. Yep. So on N Street, as you all know, N Street is probably the sidewalk is the biggest opportunity for us, but also this is where we have a lot of the existing retail now today. And so we wanted to look at ways that we can actually better support that retail, but also create some experiences for the community to enjoy, and also, frankly, be an amenity for the convention center as well. So you'll see here right now today, this is that faux wall that I suggested that really is just a cover for the turn radius for that loading dock up there. So trust me, our operations people wanted to skin me alive to make sure that operations would not be impacted. But we were able to carve out a portion of this loading dock area, or the dock, I should say, and actually create an amazing rooftop experience, or roof terrace experience. And so you'll see here on the far corner here, which is really the northwest corner, or northwest corner, that we've able to now articulate space for what would be a rooftop terrace location. Still preserving the radius and turns for trucks for the loading dock area, but we would do it in a way that would be accessible for all that retail below. And we also could use that space for special event programming as well, but it's something that would be seasonal in nature. But we think it's very exciting that the retail tenants are really excited about. Yes. They do. So yeah, we have, so in this building we have 2 sets of exhibit halls. We have lower exhibit halls and we have upper exhibit halls. So when I spoke about that food court's on the upper exhibit halls. And so when you come into off of M Street, you can either go down to the lower exhibit halls or you actually go up. And you've never noticed it because those screen walls are blocking it. So they serve their purpose, so, but that's why. Yes, sir. So we have some of those spaces are actually built in already to that new retail space. So we've actually developed both storage space as well as some trash receptacles for their space inside their space. Yep. Thank you. Great question. All right. So this gives you a sense of what that space would look like. This is what the existing condition is today on that corner. And that's even the picture taken or rendering before we even had Union Kitchen Grocer there. Just to orient you, that's where they are now below. And so this is what that space could look like. So You'll see obviously accessible by this staircase, and there'll also be an elevator accessible as well for ADA purposes. But again, open air space, and I think the notion that, again, patrons to our retail establishments could also enjoy and go up and use that space. But we also could have community could certainly rent the space, or we'd have some opportunities to have community events there, but also it would be amenity for the convention center for some of our customers to have some events up there as well. Completely screened. So there'll be a screening wall there, and the trucks will be able to go there and won't be impacted at all. Yep. So we're excited. Yep. Trust me, my operations guys wore me out on this one. They made sure. Yeah. Yeah, the good news is most of the unloading and loading really come either very early or very late as it relates, because, yeah, during our event activities is when they typically will be in show, and so they're not loading there anyway at that time, generally. There will be some exceptions to the rule. So on 9th Street, so this gives you a sense of, again, the existing conditions that you know already. And then this is, again, some of those raised planter boxes, and you can see we've introduced some of these elements, new trees as well, but what we propose here as well. We certainly engaged DDOT to make sure we understood what the required widths were from the planter box into the street corner edge, but they were on board and supportive of the concept. We're still working with them, but this one was they understood why and what we're trying to accomplish here. This is N Street, so again, much more depth on N Street. And for those who know part of our history, thanks to the good work of Teresa Dubois, I'll give her some love, that we did lots of interim activations. We worked with Arts and Humanities and others. And so in addition to your idea or concept, we think this still will be a great location to continue to do some of that programming. So we obviously want to focus on putting in some of this infrastructure improvements, but the next step will be the programming element as well. So this gives you an idea of, again, some of the, we'd introduce some signage for our retailers that they are welcoming and craving, and then have some accessibility to that rooftop terrace. You'll notice on the other side, I don't know if there's a better shot of it, on the other side, Joanne, oh, there's later on, okay, so the other side, there's we start to introduce some art elements as well that we think would be a great location, one of the great locations for that art. And you'll see the raised planters. Planters are designed in a way that there'll be seating as well, so we think that's a great amenity for the retailers as well as obviously the roof terrace. Sure. Arm rails? Gotcha, okay. Good idea, thank you. Yeah, oh wow, okay. I won't touch that one. Next is the N Street. Again, just gives you another vantage point of N Street from the other side. So this gives you what could be an art element on that, or you could have a mural or something there that we want to introduce some dramatic art element there. Yes, sir.
I like the way the stairwell looks, but I'm looking through an eye of public safety. Mm-hmm. What happens when the businesses are closed? Does anybody have access to the roof space? Is it left open? Is it a way that you can close it off without?
Yes, great question. And from our building perspective, we'll absolutely have to have it closed off when we're not having any events there. Now, having said that, during the day, when there's retail establishments are open, we'll have that space. The idea is to have it open. Mm-hmm. And there's enough of a screen wall or a wall that will, frankly, be closed off from the loading dock that people won't be able to access. But to your point, we won't want anybody loitering up there, so we'll have to put security, certainly our detail, to be mindful and also roaming up into that space as well. Right. Yep. Great point. Thank you. So for the Metro Plaza, many of you know one of the key components was accessible to the Metro when we built this building, but you'll also see, and this just gives you, orients you to where we are and where the Metro is. You'll also know that it was, Joanne, would you like to comment on this design before I say anything? very bunker style in its look. It obviously served a purpose. It's interesting, one of the first things we did when we proposed a new metro entrance is that we created something with all glass and very transparent. In fact, very little structural presence whatsoever. The interesting comments that we got from CFA and others was that it really was not enough of a presence. And despite whether you like or not or dislike that entrance, it does have a presence that fits the building architecturally. So it was great feedback for us, and so we went back to the drawing board, but we also wanted to maintain some transparency. Right now, I mean, you're getting under this bunkered shell and you don't know where you are, or you're lost when you get there, and it's not as inviting. And so we worked with CFA and others this just gives you more vantage or viewpoints of the building. So we worked at looking at one that would create some mass to still give it that presence there in the building, but also give a lot more transparent look and feel. And so this is fortunately what CFA also and NCPC approved. But again, it strikes the balance of having a presence there as an entrance, but also for us, opening up this entrance and really welcoming people into not only the metro entrance, but also to the building. This gives you a, excuse me, a sense of the view from the convention center looking out. Much better, right? Yep. What's that? Yes, we did. And that was as a result of the feedback we got from NCPC and CFA. Yep. Do you like this one better? I hope. Good. Good.
Yeah, so in my station, Gallery Place Chinatown, they have artwork to let you know you're in Chinatown. That big fan, Oriental fan that's at the H is in Henry Street exit, which really settles you in knowing you're in Chinatown. Have you ever considered approaching WMATA to see if something could be done actually in the station itself, both at the train level and at the mezzanine level, so people would know that other than signs that they're entering this convention center area?
We've engaged WMATA on lots of operational issues even before this project. We engaged them as it relates to this project. We probably haven't got so far as artwork either as it relates to this project or inside the metro terminal, but we certainly am happy to raise that with them as well. It's a great point you make about, for us, selfishly, we want our attendees to feel welcome and have a sense of place even before they get to the building. So doing something like that at Metro is probably a good, and it doesn't have to be related to the convention center, but it can be something related to local artists or the authenticity of the neighborhood or what have you. So I think it's an excellent point. So we'll make sure we'll make a point, probably be down the line as it relates to the programming, but that's something we're happy to address. I'm not sure, I confess I don't ride the Metro that much, so I don't recall Gallery Place, what you said, but next time I go down there, I have to take a look at it. So. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. The good news is, one way or the other, Metro has enough to deal with that probably their answer is going to be, if you pay for it, sure. so we'll figure something out. Wayfinding. So obviously important. It's an enormous building, as you all know, and I spoke about the circumference of 1 mile to get around. So we often find, even inside the building, that people get lost very quickly. And so we wanted to introduce some notion of wayfinding so people could know where they are and where they're going. These are elements, and again, this is just some draft, some concepts. I can't say that we're completely sold on this particular wayfinding system, but this gives you a sense of location and types of things we could do that would be subtle to the building and not overpowering, but also give people a sense of direction. So don't necessarily worry about the final concept yet, but the notion of wayfinding and where it can be located. Yes? Yes, we took a look at it initially. We're not necessarily opposed to it, but we felt like that they probably weren't, at least the city's existing system probably wasn't tied into some of these design elements, and nor were they in close proximity enough to the building. Like we think for, we did a little bit of studies of how people walk to and from and where these locations needed to be. And so we feel like whether we adopt similar systems or not, probably the look and feel of where they are located probably is not suitable for our building. But we can certainly revisit the look and feel of them. But we feel like for those reasons I described, the locations or the placement of them, either affixed to the building or otherwise, are probably critical. Correct. We did.
So, of course, that L Street pedestrian walkway is problematic. If you're here attending where there's very few, where there are smaller meetings, not the large, not APAC, not the doctors, whatever, but when there's, meetings of 200-300 people, whatever, and people are going from one building to another, and there's not traffic control officers out there, it's really unsettling. I mean, for me personally, it's all right, but if you're from out of town, you're not anticipating going through, crossing a busy street or semi-busy street. Yep. And have you thought of just closing that off and just having, these are basically out-of-towners anyway, of having them go up and around, just as something that was, as a safety feature?
Closing off.
Yeah.
L Street?
Crossing, not crossing off the traffic, but the pedestrian flow. So if I'm
across
going from
L Street is what you're suggesting.
Yeah, so you would have to go up and down.
Oh. Yeah, we a couple of things. Sometimes the way our shows are structured, if we have multiple shows, that they may have access to one area and not the other. People, as you can appreciate, walk this long span of building, and they want to find the quickest route often, particularly if they're in meeting space at this level and want to get to the front of the building to wherever retail experience or whatever might be happening programmatically. So it's just a matter of convenience that we probably wanted to get people to from. Now, I will say, on a show-by-show basis, we do sometimes put exit signs on the door and direct people that way for security reasons, or programmatically we may have to do that. But we haven't considered closing it off permanently, just given the nature of the flow and convenience of the customers.
Well, I'm just talking about when there's smaller meetings. When you're here with the large meetings,
yeah.
It's not a problem. Because there's thousands of people crossing here.
Yeah.
It's like if you're here at a meeting and it's during the winter and it's already gotten dark.
Sure.
There's no traffic control officer out there.
Yeah, that's fair. We try to staff them and exhaust having the resources there for any time we have a show in the building. So typically, if you see that there's no traffic cop officer there, it's usually there's no show in the building, and there may be only people who are working there and come to and from and have limited access. But it's something we can look at from an hours perspective. But generally, for any shows that we have, we're going to have resources out there directing people. Okay.
Because he's mentioned L Street, I was just wondering. I was just wondering if you consider doing some kind of lighting system above. I mean, some sparkle type lighting, which would light up that tunnel and make it more of a.
Did you see my presentation already?
No. Oh my God.
We have some lighting in here for you.
I was going to say a festive experience instead of just a tunnel.
No, yeah, we incorporated some lighting in here.
I didn't.
Thank you for stealing my thunder. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So public art. We have a couple areas where we want to introduce some art elements. And again, these are not final. We're not proposing the actual art, but want to give you a sense of what this art could look like. A couple areas where we can introduce. So this is the 9th Street area, back towards the north end of 9th Street. If you see the graphic at the, you don't like that architectural design right there? That facade, that's award-winning facade right there. Fair enough. But after we are finished, you're going to like this one better. So just to give you a sense, and again, we could have a mural there. It could be many different things. I personally don't care for that one, but just gives you the notion of what it could be. Yep. So let me quickly go through some other. So this is on N Street. So this is where that staircase location would be. So we showed again what some type of sculpture or some type of artwork could be introduced there. We think it's very cool, obviously visually, but also those who are ascending to the rooftop terrace could enjoy as well. And there could be all different types of things, interactive art and other things that we can introduce. So this is the tunnel that you love, and we're going to leave it exactly like this, no changes. One of the things I did want to mention, and again, part of Teresa's great work was when we partnered with Arts and Humanities, we ran some programming where we had some temporary installations that everybody recognizes. So we fully plan to introduce that notion again of having some installations in all of these boxes that we have here. We'll probably need to do some upgrades in terms of lighting or infrastructure to support whatever artwork is there, but we fully intend to do so. So quite drab. I think all of us probably fully appreciate how many people walk to and from to the metro through this tunnel. It's quite remarkable, actually. So we wanted to make sure they were safe. So there you go. Wow. I don't even have to say anything else. I'll just drop the mic. So, but obviously, very cool, some sidewalk elements, even some lighting there, and then some uplighting. We think, again, these are types of concepts that we think would be quite, sure. Absolutely. Sure. Yep. Cool. All right. We may have to come to the Penn Quarter for some budget, but that's okay. So no, but great, obviously concept, but appreciate the recommendation. We'll certainly follow up. On the south portion of the building, obviously from Mount Vernon, this one area is a little bit tricky because you all can appreciate we have thousands of people coming in and around the building as well. And that ranges from attendees coming to protesters who are there to all types of even pedestrians and all of us who just walk to and from across the south portion of the building. So this is what it looks like today. We want to introduce some elements that we'd have, again, some planters with raised planters with some seating. But we were mindful of having them really, again, plenty of room for attendees to come. And you all have to remember, or you should remember, or maybe you don't, I'll just help you remember, for conventions, people generally come en masse. And so they come for the plenary session in the morning. So if we have 10,000 people coming, they're coming generally up 7th Street and up 9th Street. And so we have to make sure that these corridors are pretty open for them to walk freely. So we were mindful of the placement of those boxes, and particularly you'll see as they're tucked close to the wall on the north side of the sidewalk. And we think, again, gives plenty of room for people to feel comfortable and enjoy those spaces, but also be able to access the building. So on the exterior, or excuse me, the facade of the building, you all may or may not remember that we have these wonderful pylons. And if you look closely, these pylons have these glass elements that are supposed to be lit. I can't tell you how many architects, when we were building this building and shortly thereafter, spent lots of money on figuring out why these, damn pylons were not lighting appropriately. So one of the things, and some of it was the structural way, the nature of how they were built, and also, frankly, the materials as well as how they were configured. So we're going to address this lighting once and for all. So this just gives you, obviously, you can theme and have, and we typically have uplighting today for, if the Nats are going to the playoffs or for some type of awareness for our customers, we're happy to do that. But we do that on a temporary installation basis, and so figuring this out to get it right is one of the things we'll do as part of this experience. And so we're very excited. It won't be overpowering. It'll certainly be the right illumination, but obviously it has, for such a beautiful building with all the glazing, the glass, it's a nice effect at night when we can create that experience. Okay. So just timeline of where we are. for this particular project. As I shared, we have the regulatory approvals and the conceptual design is done. So we'll start actually, and I should reference, we are still engaged with DDOT. So we'll start awarding some bid packages. And the way this works, and you can appreciate all the different elements you've seen, that we won't have one contractor. We'll have engaged several contractors to spread the opportunity and also, leverage the different skill sets from, getting someone who focuses or specializes on art versus seating and the like. So we'll take quite some time. As a result of all the different things we have to do and how we procure it, we also have to be mindful of all the kind of event activities that we have. And so that will probably, in some cases, require us to phase some of this. And so we just put at the bottom, you'll see 2019 through 2021 is what our target completion is, to phase all this in. So that may slip, may contract, we'll see. But we'll certainly get together with you all and share once we start to bid out some of this work and get some real packages. And so we have some deliverables and expectations of the contractor. We'll share that with you and have some real timelines. But just want to give you a sense of what we're looking for. That concludes the presentation. So I know we've been interactive along the way. No, thank you. I want to say I'm like the talking head, but these guys right here are the project managers who make it all happen. So Will and Ryan have been fantastic of really, working with the architect, working with our partners, working with the regulatory bodies, and obviously working with the community as well to actualize this vision. So please give them the round of applause if you don't mind. And then, so OMA is the architect that worked on the conceptual design, which they've been fantastic. Yeah. And I can give you some, okay, you know them, right? Yeah. And as you all know, Teresa has done an amazing job for us as she really engages you all as well. Chignette, who I don't speak about enough, heads our marketing communications team. Tiffany, who's with her, obviously. But it's not only important for the promotion of the events we do, but also as we engage the community, part of the community engagement really falls on her responsibility as well. And then all our service partners, these guys have been great, and VJ as well has joined our team, and he helps do this at RFK as well. So I just want to, I gave Tiffany the love as part of your speech, but if we want to turn the lights down and put the spotlight on Tiffany alone, she's done a great job as part of Chin's team. So I just want to thank you all. I personally know most, if not all of you, and I appreciate the feedback and support you all have given us, but also me personally. So I just want to say thank you. This gentleman had a question. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll give you my card and as soon as we're done, and anybody else who wants it. All right. That's all I got. I will do a breakfast presentation. If you'll feed me breakfast, can I place my order as to what I like? Oh, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All good. No, I'm happy to do it. And that goes for, yes, sir. We haven't scheduled yet, but it'll probably be on a quarterly basis, so probably within the quarter. And in all seriousness, to Joan's point, like if there's any meetings or any discussions that you all like us to participate in, let us know. We're happy to do it. Okay? So thank you all. Have a good night. Be safe. Enjoy the warm weather that's finally coming. So hopefully it'll be here for good.